Hello, everyone. Welcome to another episode of Principles of Leadership. Leadership is unlocking people's potential to become better. And also, leadership is the yeah, and also leadership is the capability to translate visions into reality. So, people who are want to become leader, there are certain principles that they need to maintain. And like today, my guest, Mr. Sneer, is having a 32 year, more than 30 years of corporate experience. And right now, currently, he is a managing director of Matter of Fact Software. So let me onboard Stephen and let's get some basics from him. Welcome, Stephen.
Hello, Sanjay. Thanks for inviting me.
Yeah. So before we start, could you share your journey in the corporate? Like you have got a huge experience, more than 30 years of experience in the industry. So,
Yep.
I want to know basically, like, after your graduation and like, what are the struggles that you have made and how you got into this position?
Yep. Happy to do that. In fact, I graduated with a degree in applied biology, of all things, back in
Okay.
1984. So something over 38 years ago now.
Right.
And it's been quite a journey in that time, as you might imagine. And I started my career working for the British Steel Corporation as a trainee analyst programmer, straight out of university and learning what was then called a 4GL, programming language called Mantis from a company called
Right.
Syncom. They're still in business. And then after I got involved in that for a little while, I started to learn JCL and COBOL, all of this being on the IBM mainframe. My entire career has been focused on the IBM mainframe, all 38 years of it. So that's where I started in South Wales. And after a couple of years or so, I had a desire to move closer to my wife. I'd recently got married shortly after being graduating and starting my career, but the pair of us found ourselves hundreds of miles apart, and I had the opportunity to move within British Steel to South Yorkshire to be that much closer to my wife. And I made the transition at that point from what was essentially an application development career into system support, what was known and still is known as systems programming or system engineering. Again, all in the IBM mainframe arena, and I've pretty much stayed in that role ever since. Albeit, of course, there's been a lot of change in other areas. So I stayed in British Steel for another couple of years, where I started to become uh, and learn what it was to be a systems programmer before making my first substantial change, where I left British Steel and I joined what was then called the Bradford and Bingley Building Society. Was a financial institution. It lent money to customers to buy houses, mortgages. So a financial institution, that was my first one. And I did spend 6 years with the Bradford and Bingley, where really I did become uh, very much exposed to most of the aspects of systems programming on the IBM mainframe. But I started then specializing in KICS, which is one particular part of the IBM mainframe. But I did work on the operating system, I did work on the networking software. Yeah, lots of upgrades and things like that in all of those areas. So I really did learn to do my job at that point. And the point came after 6 years there that I just needed a break from that role, and I actually went freelance. So we're talking around about 1994. And at that time, I could have gone almost anywhere. The market was so red hot for people with my skills that I was being offered work in 10 or more different places. But I chose to go to join Shell in the Netherlands at this point on a freelance basis. And I've been well. I was in Scotland before that, actually. Sorry, backing up a little bit. My first freelance role was in Scotland with the Royal Bank of Scotland, and I was with them for 2 years in a technical role, supporting KICS in one of the biggest mainframe infrastructures in the world, and it always has been. Then I went to the Netherlands after that. So this was around about 1996. I went to the Netherlands, brought my family with me. I had children by then. And we had 3 very happy years in the Netherlands, myself working for Shell. It was an immensely busy time. The run up to the Y2K event generated a lot of work. And in any case, Shell were in the business of consolidating data centers from around Europe into the Netherlands. And that generated a lot of work. And all of these systems, when you bring them together, they are all at a different level. They're not the same. They follow different standards. They're at different levels of the software. So there was a lot of work done to bring them together and harmonize them. So that was an immensely busy time. But towards the end of that period, I could have remained longer, but I did get the opportunity to go and join Deutsche Bank in Frankfurt. And I thought, well, this opportunity may not arise again in a hurry, so I took it. And the family and I moved to the area of Frankfurt in Germany. And I saw out Y2K there. And it would have been great to stay with them, but the market got tough immediately after Y2K. The world had spent a small fortune in getting ready, preparing for Y2K. And Deutsche Bank, along with a lot of other companies, cut costs drastically. And unfortunately, I couldn't remain there. So I had a short break at that point, and unfortunately, I couldn't find something to continue in Germany. We would love to have stayed. But I ended up going and taking the family to Brussels, where I worked with a company called Euroclear, which is a fascinating company. It deals with huge investments on behalf of institutions, essentially, and transacting exchanges of funds between them. So I spent a couple of years there, also doing lots of very intense KICS work, upgrades, that kind of thing. After that, we'd sort of reached the point with our children where they needed a stable education, so we wanted to bring them back to the UK. And I ended up coming back to the UK and working in London briefly. Again, specialism, KICS upgrades principally. That came to an end. I had another short break, and I ended up spending some time in Saudi Arabia, in Riyadh, again for a bank, Riyadh Bank, as it happens. Ongoing KICS support work for them. I then came back and did another stint for Royal Bank of Scotland in Edinburgh. That was the second of, I think, 5 contracts that I've done at RBS, who are now known as NatWest. I don't know if you've been following. But yeah, I've been back to them 5 years, and I would say probably a good quarter of my career, maybe a little bit more than a quarter of my career, has been for the Royal Bank of Scotland group in Edinburgh. So I did stint with them. I then did another 18 months back out at Euroclear on my own this time. The family was back here, and I was commuting through airports back and forth to do that job. And then there was yet another return to Edinburgh, Royal Bank of Scotland, followed by another technical consultancy role in a health insurance company in the Netherlands called CZ. So again, some technical upgrade type work that had to be done there. Following that, I spent a whole year, we're talking more than 10 years ago still here now, with the Barclays Bank in the north of England. Did some technical work for there and supported their systems through that year. Following that, there was a short contract with Accenture. They were doing some work for, I think it was the Department of Work and Pensions, and I just got involved in that for a short period of time. They then followed another two, one in a row with a gap between, returns to the Royal Bank of Scotland for more technical work. Both of them were major software upgrades. The first of those went on for over 3 years and involved upgrading their entire KICS infrastructure. At the time, I believe it was probably one of the biggest in the world. It may still be. So that was followed by an upgrade to the KICS transaction gateway software in a separate stint. And then there was a short contract where I did was involved in a project to audit the security for Poland's biggest bank, the PKO Bank. So that was something a little bit different. And then there was another short, several months anyway. I was associated with the Scottish Widows life assurance type, an investment type company, part of the Lloyds Banking Group. Although that was a little different. I was now moving into what would you call a quality assurance role. So I was overseeing what was being done to develop applications for that organization. Essentially, they had they had loads of application development ongoing, but one particular project, the consequences of it not going well or to time were financially enormous. So they wanted me to overview it and just reassure them that it wasn't all going to go horribly wrong at some point. So I wasn't actually actively involved in developing or anything hands-on that time for the first time. I mean, everything else I've done has been hands-on. Right. So following that, we're getting close to the end now. It does seem like quite a lot, doesn't it? Yeah, my current role in a consulting capacity is working for TCS. Again, it's as a KICS specialist. And these days, whilst I'm still doing the same type of thing, I'm supporting their services, I'm supporting the developers, I'm bringing about upgrades or maintenance upgrades to the software. But on top of all of that, I'm now trying to train junior systems programmers so that they can do these things. And the work is highly technical. The software is can be very complex. The documentation supporting the software can be very confusing for somebody. So my job is to interpret what they need to do and then help them to learn to do it. So I've been quite enjoying that. And the only other thing I would say is that alongside all of these roles, I've also founded a software company, because along the way, as you might imagine, I have seen a lot of the business challenges that companies that are using mainframe technology are facing. And I've been able to also foresee how by using the software, you could be exploited better and to solve those business challenges. So over the last few years, we have developed a couple of software products, and we try to find market for that. So I'm doing that alongside the consulting roles, which essentially pay for all of the other things that we need to do to run that business. So that's it in a nutshell. I'm sorry it went on a bit, but as you can see, I've been to quite a number of sites all over.
Right. You have got a vast experience, and to that too in a different domains, like in technical, in financial domain, also in hospitality, medical domain, also. Like, but everybody were associated into tech support, mainly on mainframes, right?
That's correct. Yes. Really, in terms of the type of business. I mean, I can see that an awful lot of what I've been working is financial institutions of one type or another, be they banks or insurance companies or brokerages, that kind of thing. But also, I did spend a good long period at Shell, which isn't a financial institution. It's a manufacturer and marketing company, machine, massive. So I think the point I would say is that when it comes to actual technical expertise with a piece of software or with a platform, it doesn't really matter that much. You need to know that and be experienced with the same type of things to be able to support each of those companies. But they do have, slightly different things that they see as important. So, for example, when you're talking about the financial organizations, then the service. Well, with all of them, the service has to be available.
Right.
Whatever is underpinning their business, it has to be running. It has to be running smoothly. And some of these businesses, the scale of these systems, their importance, you can almost feel the building shake when they're not running properly. It's a really big deal. It's important to be focused and able to help them sort their problems out. But the other thing, the financial companies, I think, are that much more cautious. The further away you get from the finance, it seems there's more, there's less concern about change, for example, and
Right.
it is the case that everything is changing just about all of the time. So something is coming along that's going to change shortly, that's being developed at the moment. That's always the case. Something is moving. It's never standing completely still.
Right.
So the banks especially are quite rightly nervous of change, because change introduces risk. And you can, with a bad change, damage their service, which of course affects their customers, their reputation, etc. So the banks tend to be a lot more cautious and take a lot more trouble over the changes, pay a lot more attention to the changes that are being made and who is doing them, than companies who are not on the front line of finance, I would say. Mm-hmm.
Right. So, I want to know, what is the prospect of mainframe in nowadays, like in the industry?
Yeah, it is a good question, because if I've noticed one thing over the decades, is that the IT industry has reinvented the wheel again and again and again. There's always some vendor or other that's pushing something. Of course, the mainframe was from quite early on. And a lot of people will tell you, "Oh, the mainframe is dead." I've been hearing that the mainframe is dying since the 90s. It's still there, and as far as I can tell, in some respects, it's still growing. But it's always quite enticing to be told at a high level that you can save a fortune, you can improve things by doing this, which entails moving off the platform onto something else. And whilst there may be some truth in that, don't believe everything that you hear. I think would be the lesson that I've learned. They will tell you anything to try and get your business. And you might spend a small fortune trying to do something that they're telling you they can do, and they often turn out that they actually can't. So I think what we're starting to see now, because of course the latest thing that everyone is hyping is cloud, and it sounds great, but I think I'm amazed that it's taken them as long as they have to get even some basic things on the cloud. But it did strike me very early on that some very simple, repetitive things that need to be done better could and probably should be done in an off-host system that is cloud-like. But it's taken them much longer than I thought it would to get to grips with even those. We are starting to see them now. But having said that, I spend most of my time working with highly complex, integrated, massive systems. And when I look at those and I think, well, if somebody wanted to pull all of that and put it onto another platform, what would they have to do? And I really can't yet see how it would be possible for some of these large, especially the newer systems, because they will tell you, even with Kix applications, oh yes, we can take that. The code just runs on this platform and it's seamless and it can be done, and the data gets pulled over as well. For some very old, simple applications, maybe that they're not even particularly high volume, I think you can do that. I think that's quite possible, and that's the sort of thing that's happening at the moment.
Right.
But the large, highly active and newer and more complex systems,
Interrelated
oh,
systems
yeah.
like that. For that, you need to have a mainframe.
I don't see
Separate.
it going away anytime soon. I know it's going to see me out. I believe it will see out my trainees as well. There's always going to be a requirement for people working in this area. The systems are too important. They can't move off them. So the thing that I hear, I mean, we're always trying to get new people in to help us work on the environment, and they can't find them. Okay, so or if they do find somebody for me to interview, they're just not got the right level of education or experience to take on. But if occasionally, and I've been saying this for years, you need to take on 5 trainees in order to retain one, because it doesn't suit everybody. They'll go off and do something else, or it isn't for them for one reason or another. But if they keep bringing in trainees, the only thing really that you need in your trainees is that they are intelligent and that they're motivated. And if they've got those, then you can train anybody. Yeah. So if they've got a bit of background knowledge already, that's great. You can just build upon it. But if they've got those 2 things to begin with, you can work with them and they can learn what it is that we do to support this platform. So I think there is definitely still a future in it.
Okay. So no, as you said, like you are taking interviews for fresher or trainings. Like, what are things that you look for? Like, as you said that they are motivated, and the skill that you're looking for. What sort of skill that you're looking for?
Yeah, well, I suppose it does depend on the level of experience they may have already. If they're asking me to interview somebody who claims to have experience on the platform already, then it is quickly apparent just how much they have got or not. So sometimes you find people are saying yes, they have this experience and they barely touched it actually. So I wouldn't suggest that you're going to get very far if you claim to have knowledge and experience that you don't. That's the first thing. But even then, if they are noticeably intelligent, and this can come across through them asking good questions when they're given the opportunity in an interview, then it becomes apparent that they have got an interest in the subject. They know enough to ask smart questions. That's a good sign. At that point, you're then trying to judge little things that are a little bit more subtle, like are they going to be a fit with your team? If I'm having to train them, then I've only got English as a medium. Unfortunately, it's the only language I have. So I've got to be able to communicate with them. They've got to be able to communicate well with me. Of course, if there's somebody else with better language skills, then that problem doesn't occur. But if I'm looking for me to train someone, I've got to be able to communicate well with them. And if they're keen, and I think that they're going to apply themselves to this, then they're perfectly fine to start, and they can be trained.
So now you're you're in 33 decades. You have started with your career as a tech support. Now, after 3 decades, you are now become a leader and you are maintaining a team. So, what are the principles that you follow to motivate your team or to get some work from them? What are the principles that you follow?
Yeah. Well, it is, of course, always helpful to, if they're self-motivated. In fact, if they're not, then there's very little that you can do. Uh, there's very little that I can do to motivate them other than to show them the enthusiasm that I have for the job. And after all this time, you'd think that I would have left it myself if I didn't have that enthusiasm. But it's always been a good career for me. I'm the sort of person that likes to learn how to make something work, and that's certainly something you have to do in this job. Um, you require to do quite a lot of reading, okay? Because until you know and understand something, you will always be directed to the manuals that go with the product that you're looking at or being asked to support. You won't know it all. You will never know it all, especially because the software evolves over time, and the new things are coming in. Some old things disappear. So you will never know it all. That's part of the appeal as well. So I'm really looking for people who can. Well, they've got to exhibit that kind of interest in the job. Okay, and my job is to show them just how capable the software is if they can learn how to exploit it, because that for me is a big part of the job. If you only think that the software can solve a problem, then that's sort of half the battle, really. You can then go and find out how to actually solve the problem with software, and it may involve you writing some code or configuring something to make it work. But you need to have an interest, and you've got to be interested enough and committed enough to put those hours into learning it. So I'm looking for people who exhibit that, along with a bit of intelligence. And as I say, if I can communicate with them and work with them regularly, then they make perfectly good mainframe support people. Yeah.
Okay. And in software development, like code and everything you will get from everywhere. But the thing that I think as a software development you must have is the logic.
Yeah,
Because
I agree. It's I suppose I've never had to question it. I had a degree in biology that really set me up. You would have thought probably not a great place to start a career in IT, but it
right,
did help me to think critically, and to work things out logically. And within your head, if you study something enough, then you start to see, you either understand what it is they've written in the manuals, which can be very difficult to understand sometimes, or you begin to see patterns and make sense of it for yourself. All of these things require a lot of dedication, and just a bit of intelligence, as I say, and just applying yourself to it. So I'd say, if you find people who are willing to put those hours into it, and eventually when they become more confident in some things, then I think the key really is that they start to take responsibility for things. So this is what's happening with my trainees right now. I've had them for probably, one of them for coming up for a couple of years, the other one for a little bit less than that. The first of them now, he has grasped many of the basic concepts of what I've been teaching him, to the point where he is willing to take responsibility to do them for himself. Now, I just oversee what he's doing. I will throw in a comment or perhaps suggest something that might be a slightly better way or a less risky way to do it. Because this is the other thing, I suppose, the non-technical aspects of what we're doing. The thing that you sort of acquire over time, especially when you're working in a bank or something, is that you've got to mitigate risk. Okay, so a lot of the things that we're doing may involve quite a large change. It's the equivalent of taking an engine out of a car and putting a new one in. Quite often, that sort of analogy fits. So the whole thing could be stripped down and then put back in, and it's just supposed to work at the end of the day. So the trick is to really recognize what are the risks to the business of doing this change, and what you can do to mitigate those risks. Now, these aren't technical things; they're just sort of logic you know that if you're going to take the engine out of a car, that putting it back in, maybe it won't work afterwards. So what can you do to improve your chances of it succeeding? And that applies to software engineering as well. So yeah, I'm trying to teach that, and I think they start to get that. This is something that's really tough for the trainees, I think, and yet I can't let them learn by making mistake, because if they make a mistake, it affects the business. So it's a tough one for them to learn, but they do get it. They learn to identify risks. They learn to mitigate the risks, and they learn how to tell senior managers and executives why they're doing it the way they're doing it, and it's basically because we're trying to keep your system running whilst making a change. So that's essentially what we do.
Okay.
The other thing I'm looking for. Sorry, go on ahead. Go ahead.
No, actually, I was asking like it's highly technical. So if some non-technical background freshers or professionals they want to move into this area, uh, is it possible for them to poke into it, or it's what do you say?
I'm not sure actually. I think for a long time I was aware that a long time from now, mostly they're looking for people with a computer science degree of some description. But I still do occasionally come across people that have come in from a different area if they've been given the opportunity. So
Right.
somebody will have seen something in them. And as I say, if you're asking me, then I'm just looking for intelligence and application. If they've got those things, anyone can learn this job. So I don't really mind if they've got a computer science degree or not. I haven't got one. I don't see that you need more than that. But I think that when you're approaching companies that might be using this technology, they will have a professional HR department, and they will have been told, look for people with a computer science degree. So the opportunities to actually jump into it from something else are probably more limited now than they were. But having said that, if somebody is determined to try and get into this, then they should just bash away and keep applying, I think, because I see no reason why they should be at a disadvantage. If they're intelligent and prepared to apply themselves, then they can learn this. They just need
Yeah,
to be given the
because I
opportunity
have
by
got
somebody.
not one, not two. I have got many case studies where people from non-technical background, being a BCom or BA, right now they are working in MNCs and as a technical, as a database administrator. You can say it's a highly skilled manpower. Companies are looking for, right? So having no experience, still they are working. So it is possible. But yeah, in mainframe and all, like their coding is required. So I was asking like people having a fear of coding. So
Yeah, well, obviously, if they're wanting to get into a technology job, then as I say, they're going to have to show a lot of interest in it. So they will probably be doing something on their own to expand their knowledge. Maybe learning front end programming, for example, is something they can do on their own. There's plenty of opportunity to do that. We've all got a laptop. They're very capable of doing an awful lot. It's not a mainframe, but there's a lot of things you can do front end wise to learn a bit about computing. So I would imagine that people that are trying to get into IT would probably have done some of that already. Yeah.
okay, yeah, great. So if people having experience in other domain, they also can join into a mainframe or this thing, unless they have got some intelligence and they have got passion for this, right?
I would think that they've got to be passionate about it. They're probably going to have to make multiple applications to get into one of these roles. Of course, if they've undertaken some training, some formal training, they can point to that and say, "Look, I've done this. You know, I'm determined to get into this business. I'm fascinated by it. I want a career in it, and I've even gone out and done all of this training to try and further my opportunities here." So I think that should stand people in good stead. There are still lots of opportunities out there. I think that that companies are always looking for trainees, essentially. So they're just looking for somebody who has a bit of knowledge that they can train up. They can see that they're intelligent, going to be motivated, and I think there are plenty of opportunities. So yeah, do the training, show interest, and keep applying yourself. And I think you get these roles eventually.
And training that too, I think like being in this industry, I can understand like if you are just mugging up the books, this will not help you out. You have to develop your skill.
Yeah, I completely agree. Learning from books is one thing, but it doesn't go in until you actually do it.
Right.
Yeah, so reading the manuals is only going to get you so far.
Very much
You need to
required.
get your hands on the technology. You need to get your hands on the technology, and preferably you need to have somebody leading you, teaching you, actively teaching you. And if you also, I mean, it might be the same person, but if you can find a mentor, somebody who will take the time to help you to learn, then that will go a long way towards maintaining your momentum, maintaining your learning, and hopefully driving you to the point where you've got to you've learned something and people are recognizing that other than them, so that you get a job.
Yeah. So yeah, that's a great like you have I mean given huge suggestions to our professionals, to our freshers, those who want to join IT industry, and they can join by getting some skill, developing their skill, and they can join. Thank you, Steve, for your time. It's a great, and thank you all for being in this show.
Well, thank you very much. I've enjoyed talking to you, and it would be good if we get some feedback from this. I'd love to hear about any success stories that emerge out of it, or if anybody wants to maintain contact with me, they can get in touch if you allow them to. That would be fine.
Thank you.